computer is this? Comfortable? Sure. I mean, it's about like, I wouldn't say it's like more or less comfortable, especially since this show is a comedy show and it's a lot harder than the other shows I've watched. But, you know, like, I guess I understand more. I wouldn't qualify it as like having reached a point where it's easy or comfortable. Like, I still have to pay attention and focus. Like, I can barely understand if I'm like talking while reading. It's also only been like a month. La tour. La fée. Schwungsa. Correct. I mean, this show in particular feels like it's got like a very complex vocabulary and words that it uses. If I was watching a different show, I feel like it'd be, I guess, more comfortable, a lot easier. Like, who in their right mind knows what this flower is? I don't. I wonder what color it is. It's red? I guess the answer's red. Correct. A month is definitely like way too short to be comfortable or call it. Although I feel like recently I've been constructing Chinese sentences in my head much more than like the last month. Maybe suddenly I felt like it was necessary in order to communicate with people because I got messaged by a Taiwanese friend not too long ago. This is a harp? Oh, it's a piano. Yeah, I mean, if I go over... I mean, when I first started learning Japanese, I went and had this Kindle. It's like a very old Kindle, I guess. But in it, I had Japanese. Just like a... I've never finished this book. I stopped reading on the Kindle a while ago. But, I mean, it's got okay lookup from what I put on here. Kizuku. その方面に意志が向いて、当然物事の存在や状態を知る気がつく. Which is fine, I guess. I think the thing for me is that looking back on it, because I started reading like kids books in Japanese, like I guess like 10-year-old level kids books around like 2-3 months in. And the thing that looking back on it is that like a lot of the words when you're reading books aren't like extremely useful for like speaking or watching TV shows. They're usually like more literary words. So they're not, I mean, I guess if that's like your ultimate goal is to like, or like a short-term goal is to be good at reading, then it could be good to get into reading books. But like I would probably personally, learning Chinese here, like rather spend my time watching TV shows and focusing more on the words that I see in TV shows rather than like more literary kind of words. but it's up to each individual. Because it's a sad situation when you like read a book, but then you go and watch a TV show and you find it like somewhat difficult because there's words that you don't know. Which is something that sometimes happens to me in Japanese. I guess it depends on the TV show there. Si tongri. Si dongri. Ton. But yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on like how short term you want. Like, I see no problem whatsoever getting into reading, especially kids' books, because I don't know. I read Gulliver's Travels. That was the first book I read in Japanese. And the thing is that in Gulliver's Travels, I can't say that correctly. Gulliver. But in Gulliver's Travels, it uses a lot of nautical terms. So it's using like nautical Japanese terms. So it's kind of like, what was the point in me learning nautical Japanese terms? Wrong. I don't think you should be overly cautious when it comes to like picking media, because as long as you're enjoying it, you're not really wasting your time. But if you're like forcing yourself to read books and it's like, oh, I don't want to be reading this book, but I feel like it's going to improve me, you might be better off watching like a TV show if your skills aren't like at the point where you want to be doing that. That's just my personal thought, how I do it with Chinese now, but like I also plan on learning. Yeah, that can be a huge pain. That's why I'm using Aichi here, is because a lot of the stuff is not embedded. And I mean, like, I watch like Japanese YouTube fairly often with embedded subtitles, and I just like when you get to a certain point of knowing enough words, embedded subtitles is not really an issue for you. So it won't like long term be an issue. Short term, though, it'll be a big pain. That's why it's probably best to stick to, like... Probably stick to TV shows that have, like... Because if you go to, like, any, like, video platform, you're gonna always find embedded subtitles, because people never like, putting in actual subtitle files. Yeah, well... I guess that's something that you have to, like... Short term, you have to avoid. But I don't know, if I go onto my phone right now, and on my phone I go to WeChat, and I just go and watch like random WeChat, like I don't remember what they call them, Discover moments or channels. No, they call them channels. If I go here and I watch some random one, because they always have subtitles. Even at this kind of level here, I mean, reading this is not that bad. So, it's not really going to be a very terrible thing long term. Lao shu nang lao bang, lao shu lang liang na lao bang, xu yi shang guo sai zo hong, gie gie shen miang shang. I think the thing is that if you're in a situation where you can't like get the word itself, like you can't like get it into Anki, or you can't like I'm doing right here, you can't look it up, it's best to just ignore the word, because it's probably more trouble than it's worth taking your time to like get it and find it than it is. I mean, I guess it's good and bad. It's something that I look at. It's something I look at like when I'm bored, like I'm not doing anything. It's not really something. It's kind of like TikTok. I guess it's trying to follow Douyin or TikTok in that aspect. But I don't really see it as like a good like primary thing to do. But also, I mean, I don't really have anyone I talk to on WeChat either. most of my friends are Taiwanese, so I'm using line more than I'm using. Also, since I know Japanese, Japanese people use line. But yeah, if you're in a situation where it's just not feasible for you to like look up the meaning of a word, it's best to just ignore it. Like if it's a common word, you'll find it, you'll see it again at some other point. Also, I don't really like WeChat because I guess this is not a problem that badly for like Chinese people because it's much harder to like make mistakes while typing. But like I don't know, I make so many errors writing in English that like using WeChat daily would be annoying because you just can't edit what you say. I don't know. I mean, you can see that I've been here for like 28, 27 days, something like that. 5 hours each day. Or, I mean, I guess some days it's not 5 hours because I'm busy. But, like, 28 days, 5 hours, and I don't really see, like, it's long term going to be an issue. I think it's better short term, maybe because it's important to me that I learn Chinese fast and well early on. Because I see it as like I have a time frame, and also I'm trying to like do a challenge somewhat. But I feel like it's probably better to like just like cut out like a couple months to really. My favorite show so far? Let me think about the shows that I've seen. This show I'm currently watching, sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's not that funny, but I guess it's enjoyable. This show, I didn't find it that interesting, but I didn't get far into it. I only watched one episode and thought, probably should learn doctoring stuff later on. But this show was okay. I guess it gets more dramaful later. The drama, though, was a little kind of overblown in my opinion. Like, I guess I didn't know the characters' names and like how they were yet. This show, um, yeah, I mean, you could always watch it if you really want to. There's nothing stopping you. This show, I guess it was a bit cutesy. Wasn't particularly good though. Um, this show had a hard-coded subtitle, so I decided not to. This show was surprisingly funny, surprisingly interesting. This show was quite interesting, although it's much more like hard-baked. And this show is fine. I guess I'm not that big into like the old ancient Chinese stuff, but like for a romantic show, it's not that bad. And I mean, personally, I don't see any reason to shy away from humor, but if you start like way too early on, I guess I don't feel like you should shy away from anything if it's something that you find like funny or interesting. No, you'd be surprised at like how the vocabulary for the most part's the same because they're speaking for the most part in modern Chinese. I guess like there's some words like I mean, in some ways, it's not really that the vocabulary is too different. Maybe it's best to like show for an example. But like if I go into the show and I go to also there's only 2 episodes. If I go to the show and I go to like the very beginning, but like the show, like you'll see this show Tiangong Wu Zhao, and that just means like the air is hot. But like the show is like kind of, at least in the beginning, it's not that bad later on, but in the beginning it's like trying to sound literary. It's using like literary speak Tiangong Wu Zhao. Xiao Jin Huo Zhu, which is like, be careful for the lanterns. Xiao Jin is normal, but Huo Zhu is like, do you really need to know the word lantern? Tianchu Jingne. It's a little weird way to phrase it. Like, it's kind of, I mean, it's not like a book. Or like Fangdong Wuji, which is like, what, a bohemian? Someone who goes around and does whatever they want. Like, the vocabulary is a little bit, like, strange, at least in this beginning part. But later on, it's not really that bad. Like, sha chong hun li zhen yang. I guess, but like, that's only so many words. Like, sha chong hun li zhen yang. I don't know. I mean, I don't see it as being so different that you should, like, necessarily, like, hide away from it. Because, I mean, at some point you'll have to learn those words, and it's like, there's only so many words. For the vast majority of the conversations, they're just, like, using modern day words. But like, this show I'm watching right now is like way more complex and harder to understand, and like, it's using entirely modern day words. Just like, these are like very specific complex words. Like, if I was a beginner, I'd rather be watching that than this. Although I am a beginner, so. Besides that, I mean, the only other thing that I have going on studying wise is I went here and I made this grammar thing I have right here, where I just went to the Chinese grammar wiki and I just like pulled the grammar wiki and just like wrote it to myself what it is. And I did the same thing with Japanese, but I just went and found like a pre-made Anki deck, and just like, I call it Chinese alternative, but it's not alternative, it's like a grammar study deck. But ta renjin de zui zhao shuo wo shi huan ni. And I mean, I guess the idea is that it's taking the Chinese grammar wiki. I mean, this is a pre-made deck, but like, ta renjin de dui wo shuo. So like, seriously, of seriously, and then dui is often used for like in talking or conversation. Dui wo shuo. But the idea is like, it's taking like the individual articles they have on the Wikipedia, like article turning adjectives into whatever. So yeah, it gives you the option to click and find this. Turning adjectives into adverbs. I mean, my issue is that oftentimes it's using vocabulary that's just like, I don't want to like necessarily learn this vocabulary, especially in this style. Like, I would prefer that the vocabulary is more simplified, but as a way of like being able to learn the grammar, I guess seeing sentences and then forcing yourself to like translate to then get like a good hold mentally on like the grammar is really nice. That's why I like to do it this way. For grammar in particular. For some reason, a lot of people feel like they just don't learn grammar. But it's like, if you don't learn grammar, it's going to take you like 10 times longer to learn shit. But that's the only other thing I do besides... I guess besides the Anki reviewing that I have for these things. Just go to a random thing. Which is just words I've seen in the shows. I personally think it's very important to review the words that you see yourself. Don't review words that other people say you should review. Retchen. At some point I've seen this word in a TV show, so it's like, if I've seen it in a TV show, it's probably important for me to learn at some point. But yeah, I mean, it's for the most part, it's a lot of the same. Like, you don't really have to change that much about your routine or anything like that. Hmm. I don't know why I'm looking up this word. I know Yu Dao means to have waited, to like wait. Whenever my brain is like in multiple places, or I guess two languages, whenever my brain's in two languages, I always do stupid things like look up words I clearly know the definition of. Or re-look up the words' definitions. It's a pattern. Hello. Happy birthday to you too, I guess. You know, Wan Li Yo, are you at all interested in like Chinese or Chinese things? Or are you Chinese Mexican? Or a Mexican in China? I guess that's both of those are possible. Or the other way around, Chinese in Mexico. I mean, I guess somewhat specific. I'm just I get a very interesting variety of people that come in here. Usually Europeans. Kind of makes sense, but also for some reason I forget people's names or where they're from. Even though I only have like what it says here 16 followers. I guess my brain is like entirely focused on remembering these words. I can't even remember who is who and where they're from. You know what would be terrible is if I did like a pop quiz, or not a pop quiz, if I did like a trivia game, and it's like a trivia game in Chinese. Like these people are answering questions that are like China related. That'd be hilarious. Oh, I mean, I've seen this word before for the word ambulance. I don't know why it's not already something I know. You know, if you talk to your girlfriend in WeChat, she's obviously Chinese or ethnically Chinese. I guess non-Chinese people use WeChat from time to time. Or I guess legally speaking, China considers all ethnic Chinese to be Chinese. But she's probably a Chinese national. Oh, Hubei. Oops. I can't off the top of my head, oops, think of that many things in Hubei. She from Chengdu? Wuhan. She could be from Wuhan. Jinzhou. I've always been a fan of Anhui over here. Although the thing for me is that, I don't know. I guess I have a friend from Nanjing. But the thing for me is that, like, Chinese cities are kind of weird. Like, I don't know. I don't really have a big, like, mental picture of, like, how the cities feel, per se. Like, if someone told me, hey, you're gonna live in China, you get to pick what city you get to live in. And it's like, oh, should I go to Beijing? Or should I go to Shanghai? Yeah, I assume it's a little. I guess the only city in China that I've had like, the only city that I've had anything of like a kind of mental image of being like an interesting, unique city is Chengdu. Yeah, like Chengdu is always, I don't know. They say like in Chengdu, if you want to like, if you're giving someone directions, you have to like point up and down because of how like hilly it is. But like besides that, like Beijing or Shanghai, it's like I don't really have a huge mental image of these being like unique to me. Yeah, I assume so. Although, I mean, I guess like in some other cities they have added in green areas too, especially like the coastal cities. I think they're trying to do coastal reclamation kind of things. Add like green belts along the coast. But yeah, I guess, although the thing is if I speak Chinese, Chengdu's native language would be, I don't know off the top of my head. I assume so. The official language, but you find Sichuanhua. Yeah, I see. That makes sense. Sichuanese. I guess that's also another good thing, is people like Sichuan food. That's another reason to go to Chengdu. How long does it take to get to the Great Wall of China from Beijing? Actually, I can just Google that myself. I guess that's another benefit. 72 kilometers. That's not that bad. 2.5 hours. Maybe I'm too American, but 2.5 hours is not bad. Maybe going to Beijing would be nice. I feel like it... I don't know. I don't want to be the person that just goes to, like, the biggest cities. Like, if I were to recommend... Is it? I didn't know. I haven't listened... I don't know that many Chinese rappers, so I can't really speak on the subject of Chinese rap. I don't even listen to English rap. But it's like... If you go to Shanghai, it's like essentially like going to New York in America, right? Or if you go to Beijing, it's like going to DC in America. But it's like, I live here in the United States, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend going to New York or DC. At least as an American, as like someone who lives in Texas but used to live in the Midwest. It's kind of like strange. I guess it's kind of the same thing as like a English person telling saying like, oh, you're gonna visit. I'll have to look at that later. I guess it's like expected. Oh yeah, like go to London or go to Paris. But it's like there's other places that have interesting things going on. I don't know. I'm gonna guess that they don't necessarily come from the show. I'm guessing the show is able to get them to be on the show. I don't think you become a rapper by like starting with TV productions. I never noticed this, but it says Woda here. Woda. Woda. I feel like I need to spend some amount of time going around China before I can like have a city that I would consider like a home to me. I see. I honestly don't know that much about like how things get popular in China or what is popular in China per se. I don't really have that kind of like historical reckoning yet. Or it's not even historical, it's like recent time reckoning. 狮子、老婆、老虎。Although if I were to go to like Japan, I feel like like I have a favorite city in Japan. It's like Kansai. It's not necessarily Tokyo. And it's like I particularly like Kansai because it's a funny place. The people who speak there speak funny like. Or I guess Kansai is not my favorite. Kansai the region is good, but I prefer Kyoto. Because of all the temples and things of that sort. They still speak Kansai Ben. They're still funny people, but you're also like walking around a place that's just got temples everywhere. I mean, I've never been to Asia, so I can't. I've got no experience with any of that. I've only been to only been to America, Mexico, and Honduras. So 3 countries, and they're all within North America. But I'm not I feel like it's more of an issue of like cost to me, because I have a fairly large amount of student debt that I prefer to pay down rather than going on expensive trips across the ocean to places. Like, I wonder how much a ticket to... Which would be the cheapest? I guess Japan would be the cheapest to fly to. $1,700. 510 would not be bad. I'm a huge cheapskate. That's the thing. Like, if... I don't know. If at all possible, like, perhaps, you know, I date or marry someone who's, like, an Asian. Which, I mean, I've dated Asians in the past, so it's not out of the blue. Unlikely. But if they had, like, family there or something, or they could, you know, some situation where I could be there for... Wow, $350 for a round trip? I don't even know how... Yeah, that's, like, most definitely impossible. Like, what were you flying, Ryanair? Voltage. But yeah, no. I mean, if at like at some point where I could have a situation where I could have like a place over in Asia that's like a home base of sorts, and then like spread out from there, you know. If I had a place that was home over there, Lufthansa, so pretty good actually. Yeah. That's a lot. I would not. I'm just too much of a cheapskate, because if it's at like if the price point is $1,200. Like, that could buy you a lot of things that you could enjoy wherever you already are at. But if I were, like... If I were in a location that was like... Yeah, I mean, if I were in a situation where... I mean, even any East Asian country, if I were like located and situated there, it would not be that bad to fly to the others. But I guess if I was like in a central location like Shanghai or Taiwan... Taipei, not Taiwan. I guess Taiwan, but like Taipei is the city I pointed to. If I were situated there, it would just be so easy to just like... Oh, weekend trip to wherever. Especially if I spoke the languages. Like, ooh, let's have a weekend trip to Hainan. Ooh, you know what? I'm bored. Let's go to Hanoi. Ooh, let's go to Korea. That would probably be very nice. Or if I had a job where it's like, yeah, we need you to just randomly appear in some country. It's just, I'm an American. Like, my country is big enough to the point where it's like... I feel like Jeju Island is not really like... Is Jeju Island really like Korea? No offense to the Jeju Islanders, but like, that's gotta be like slow as hell. Like... It's just a place for Chinese people to get married. Why is it famous? It's the only self-governing island in South Korea and is acclaimed as one of the natural heritage centers. I mean, I remember I have a friend, a Taiwanese friend, and he went over to Kinmen which is like the part of Taiwan which is next to. See, that's the problem is when you call it Taiwan, Taiwan's the name of the island. But like Taiwanese people will get angry if you call it the Republic of China. But Kinmen's the island here that's like here by it's not in Kinmen. Interesting. Or Jeju. But my friend, he told me like, yeah, I went to Kinmen, very boring. There's nothing there. I thought that was hilarious. Because I bet like he's from Taipei and he's like, oh man, Kingman, oh that's that's like China. That's our China over there. He goes there and it's just like, oh yeah, there's nothing, there's just like people, air raids going on sometimes. So stupid. But to me, I mean, I like history, so I would visit. It's kind of strange. I guess Jeju, the climate is probably slightly different because it's like a small island and it's like a little further south. And also, I guess, is it as hilly as Korea? I guess for someone that has like this idea of like, oh, I want to go to some natural place to like escape for a little while, Jeju sounds fine. Because nice beaches make sense. I mean, I'm on Durin. We have a similar situation. Like, there's an island that like tourists love to go to called Roatan, and it's cheap. Cruises always visit. A lot of people love Roatan, but it's like Roatan's most definitely not like mainland Honduras. It's very different culturally speaking. It's also different ethnically speaking because there's like a lot of like natives there, and the natives are black. Or I guess for the most, yeah, I guess they're all not. It's a very popular tourist destination for someone taking a cruise around here. So whenever I tell someone like, oh yeah, I'm Honduran, people are like, oh yeah, I've been to Honduras, and I just say like, Roatan? Yeah. It's very different feeling to mainland. Not like it's bad to visit Roatan or anything like that. It's just, it's different. I'm not from Honduras. My family is. I'm from Wisconsin. If I spoke this good English and I'm from Honduras, that'd be crazy. Especially because I have an accent. Like, I've talked to my cousins in English, and their English is slightly accented. For guys who, like, watch American shit all the time. Board. But yeah. I feel like as a person, though, I don't know. I remember I have some Taiwanese friends, and they're like, oh yeah, we'll show you around Taiwan. We'll show you even the boring parts that we never go to because it's too boring. And I'm like, what, you want to show me the boring parts of your country? It's like they're gonna go over there and point to a wall, and be like, yeah, this is a Taiwanese wall. This is what we call these are Taiwanese walls. So stupid. I'm not that easily entertained. But it would be interesting going to some museums in Asia. I mean, I guess in America, I don't go to museums that often, and the museums I do go to tend to be history museums more so than anything else. Like, I went to Pacific War Museum over here. Talked about our fight against the Japanese in the Pacific. But it'd be interesting going to a museum in another country, seeing what they're like. I've never... No, I've been to museums in other countries, but... Or one other country, but... Well, I mean... Saying it, they took it, I guess they did move it. But saying they took it's kind of like, it's a little hard, like, oh yeah, you know. I mean, they were the government at that point in time. I have to deal with, like, since most of the people I know, I mean, I know, like, a fairly large amount of Chinese, but most people I know are Taiwanese. You know, it's like, you have to, like, it's a funny amount of, like, political correctness you have to, like, know how to, like, maneuver between, like, oh yeah, how do I talk to this group of people and this group of people? At the end of the day, though, I'm an American, so it's like, not my country, not my problem. I mean, straightforward doesn't necessarily mean, like, a diplomatic way of seeing it. Like, I don't know. That's why I prefer people who have like spent time outside of their countries. Usually, they have more sensibility to not start fights. Nice. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, though, it's like I can't go start fights with friends. So there's no point in me saying things that are too oblique. I think is oblique the correct term for that? I guess oblique is the correct term for that. But even saying the truth to both sides can be an issue. Like, it's probably not good to remind a Taiwanese person that their country's called Zhonghua. Yeah, it's probably not good to tell a Taiwanese person, like, yeah, your country's called Zhonghua Mingguo. It's probably also not good to tell a Chinese person, like, oh yeah, no, there were 0 Chinese people in Taiwan 4,000 years ago. I guess at least the good thing, though, is that, like, at the end of the day, Chinese people don't hate Taiwanese people. I mean, I guess you can't necessarily say the true vice versa about Taiwanese people and Chinese people, but, like, Chinese people don't really hate Taiwanese people. They see them as, like, brethren, king, so, kin, not king, kin. You can't really say the same talking to, like, Japanese people or Korean people about Chinese people. Or vice versa. I guess the bigger surprising thing is how culturally different they can be at times, despite like the very short amount of time separate from each other. Because it's only been like what 70 years, but culturally speaking, there are some things that are like much that are very different between the two. Like viewpoints, ways of seeing the world, things that they find important. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's like readily apparent looking at like the buildings. Like for me, when I think Taipei, I've never been to Taipei, I've only seen pictures. But for me, when I think Taipei, besides it being rainy, I think of like this almost Japanese-esque kind of like close quarters. Like I could imagine this being either Taiwan or Japan almost. I guess it makes sense. Like they were part of Japan for like what, 50 years? Roughly 50 years, I think. Or no, it'd have to be closer to 60. I guess the influence is also apparent to a lot of Taiwanese people because the former president of Taiwan even like spoke better Japanese than he did Mandarin and considered himself Japanese. Although I'd be quite surprised to find a Taiwanese person who like considered themselves Japanese. Oh, you never heard of what's his name? No, that's the current president. Chiang Ching-kuo. No, not him. Li Tenghui. Li Tenghui considered himself Japanese. He fought for the Japanese. Although he was also a former member of the Communist Party of China, so I guess he's got like a varied history amongst himself. Let's see here. Independent, Chinese Communist Party, Kuomintang. He's been with it all. Oh, also second lieutenant, Pacific War. So I guess there are a lot of Taiwanese who found Japanese rule fairly well for them. He even visited the famous, what do they call it? I know it's controversial because it's got like war crime generals there, but whatever that shrine is, that's like the World War II shrine. What color is this? I mean, I assume so. Like, it's Korea. I remember I was talking to a Korean friend of mine, and I told him, like, you know what? I thought that they banned Japanese people from visiting Korea. I mean, I didn't actually believe that, but it's like, It's green. But it's like, it's well within the realm of possibility. Like, the existence of Korea. Yeah. Korean nationalism, which is like the idea that essentially created Korea in the modern sense, the Korean Republic. Well, yeah, of course. There were people like celebrating in the streets almost. Although the Koreans I know are ones who speak Japanese. So they're usually a lot more interested in defending Japan. Because Koreans who know Japanese have, a slightly more biased and different view on things. But I remember when Abe died, my Japanese friend told me, he was like, yeah, Shinzo, well, I'd have to go and reread exactly what he said for word. But it was he was quite scared of this whole. Well, I guess not scared. Scared is not the best way to put it, but he was quite shocked by the situation. I mean, that's not that surprising to me. I wouldn't be surprised if Chinese did the same. Oh yeah, I remember you said. Daido Jaijin ga ju sasarete shi ni kaketeru. Essentially, what my Japanese friend told me is that he thought that Japanese politics was going to take like a hard right turn that hadn't been seen since the 60s. But I told him I didn't think it would happen. No, I mean, my personal belief is that it gives more leverage to Korea and China to always have the ability to just, like, shit on Japan at any moment they... Like, from a negotiation standpoint, it's just better to, like, continually hate Japan. Why am I looking up this word? Like, there's, like, no reason to not just teach in your history books that Japan's evil. I think the difference is that if you go look at the European situation, Germany was very important, and one of the starting members, or I guess it's not at that point in time it was the European Union, but it was the European Steel and Coal Community, I think. European Coal and Steel Community, I had it backwards. But Germany was one of the beginning members alongside France with the European Coal and Steel Community. So not absolving the Germans of their past would mean worse economic outcomes between France and Germany. Like, it was within the interest of, like, a war-weary, war-destroyed France to rework its ties with Germany in order to get its economy and industry bustling, especially looking at the post-war situation within France. So, like, especially because Western Germany has the Ruhr, which is just a More or less, yeah. But Western Germany has the Ruhr, which is just like it's like one of the most economically viable regions within Europe. Period. I mean, the Ruhr was so important that France had to invade it after World War One. Or I guess is invade the correct word? I don't know what they teach in German history books these days. France occupies the Ruhr. I guess it was occupation, not an invasion. But it was such a principal point that in 1923, France had to occupy it in order to try and force Germany to pay back its debts. Yeah, steel coal factories that at that time, and I guess now, I mean, I'm not entirely certain what the Rhineland or the Ruhr are usually doing these days. I assume making BMWs. I don't know exactly where the BMW factories are in Germany today. But it's like the most principal area of Germany. On the contrary, Ruhrpott. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. Oh, BMW's in Munich. Oh, that makes sense. Then where's Volkswagen? Why do I write Volkswagen? Factory, Germany. Wolfsburg near Hanover. On the contrary, though, the situation for Japan, their economy post-war was essentially an island. It wasn't necessary for it to communicate with either Korea or China. And Korea and China maintaining their kind of relationship that they have with Japan has been good for them because it allows them to have better control over Japanese in investment. I don't know why I'm having trouble saying the word investment. Investment within those two countries. I guess what people don't remember is that Japan was like one of the first countries to recognize China as China. It's quite funny to me though, because I've talked to like Koreans and Chinese. I mean, and these are usually people that hate their country or whatever. And they always like love Japan, and they go and complain and say like, yeah, you know, we're propagandized to hate Japan in our schools. And it's like, okay, but you know, like my grandfather also fought against Japan and did not like the Japanese. Like, I don't know why you're complaining to me about that. Like, I'm also affected by the war of Japan. Just because I'm a Western does not mean that, you know, I think Japan's the best country on earth or something. I guess maybe they're not taught that America fought Japan. That wouldn't be surprising to me. But yeah, I'm always surprised by people in China who are ostensibly don't like China, who usually prefer Japan or Europe. They never like either Taiwan or America. That's what's surprising to me. It's like, come on. If you're not gonna like China, can't you like my country? But no, they never really care about America particularly. They always want to like live in Sweden or something. Live in Norway. Or they just want to move to Japan. It's like, do you know Japanese people don't like Chinese people? I don't know why you particularly want to move to Japan. Yeah, I mean it. I mean, I've seen there was a guy who came in here earlier. He had like a, I mean, I say earlier, it was like weeks ago. But a guy came in here and he couldn't even speak English. And he's going in here talking about like, oh yeah, China sucks. And, I love Japan. They teach us to hate Japan. And I'm thinking like, okay, so you like Japan, why? Is it the political system? Because like Japan's not really that much of a democracy. Like it's had like a one party that's been in charge for more or less 60 years. Usually it just comes down to I like Japanese culture, therefore Japan is better. Which is something I personally I don't understand because I don't really care about Japanese culture that much. And even though I know Japanese, I tell Japanese people that like I don't really care about Japan. And they usually are shocked like you're telling me this in Japanese that you don't like Japan? Not all of them. Like, I mean, I can't. I mean, like, I'd say that, like, Japan is. I wouldn't call Japan a one party system. It's more like 1.5 party system. And Taiwan is, like, two-party system, most definitely. South Korea, I don't know enough about South Korea parties to say how much it changes. Hmm. Yeah, but I guess I mean it's been since like it's been a long time since Taiwan was a one party state. Korea is kind of a hard situation to call because it was a military dictatorship. Well, I get that, but like Korea is like probably the most conservative of the East Asian countries. Also in Korea, they've like had fairly like violent situations with labor and stuff of that sort. Korea is also an interesting situation because like Korean media, or I guess you also have to keep in mind that like yeah, no, I believe it, but like I guess there's a growing feminist movement within Korea. But yeah, no, it's still like that. I mean, I have friends whose friends have like complained about how matriarchal or not matriarchal, patriarchal Korean culture is. But I mean, I also have friends who complain like, "Oh man, I don't want to be conscripted in Korea." It's just complaining all around. It's like everyone in Korea always hates Korea. That's something you have to keep in mind. Is like, for some reason, most Koreans don't like Korea. But Korea has an interesting situation because after the dictatorship ended, yeah, I mean, it's how it is. Yeah, I mean, something you have to learn is that, like, Asians in general, I guess, especially, like, when it comes to schooling, like, Asians will often go home at, like, 10 p.m. after going to, like, cram school after school. So, like, you spend, like, pretty much every weekday and maybe even the weekends just studying just to go to college so you can be the one person who goes to college so you can be the person that gets a nice job for life. It's how it is. I remember my Korean friend, I asked him, like, what do you do for fun? And he's like, I don't know. I just sleep and work. I enjoy sleeping. Yeah, that's great. But the funny thing about Korea is that their media, like all of their like artists, or I guess not artists, like movie directors and things of that sort, or TV show directors, after the end of the military dictatorship, every single artist was just basically not able to get work because they were all like working with the government. Yeah, I mean it makes sense. But you can't get burnout if you're Asian. It's probably genetic. But every single like person within big media is like new anti-governmental figures. Usually like very left wing. Because before during the military dictatorship, basically every single artist like was a supporter of the government. So after it fell, it's like they couldn't get work anymore. So, they had like a complete purge of all of the entertainment. Now all the entertainment's like replaced with left-wing people. That's how you get like TV shows like Squid Games, or you get like Parasite, things of that sort. It's something I find interesting because you don't see any kind of similar things happening in any of the other countries around there. I remember one time I watched this documentary about. I don't play League. I've never played League, and I find the idea of playing League abhorrent. But I watched a documentary about Korean League, and man, it sounds like terrible how toxic it is. Essentially, the idea is that when Koreans come after school and they only get like so many hours in the day, you get like your 30 minutes in the week to play video games or whatever, and you come off of school and you've been studying all day and hard. Essentially, the idea becomes that if people with you are not playing perfectly, you just want to be the worst troll and like just basically ruin their life because they're ruining like 30 minutes of free time you get. Which also sounds like just in general Korean society. I mean, I believe it. That's something I like, though, is that Koreans are very technological. I don't like the fact that, like, every Japanese person I go and talk to is just like, they tell me, like, sorry, I don't have a computer. And it's like, what? You don't know? You don't have a computer? And they're like, no, I don't have a computer. And it's like every Japanese person. It doesn't even matter how old or young they are. Like, I swear that fucking Japan, people don't realize that Japan's like an old country. I mean, it's not conservative in the sense like, oh yeah, they're culturally like they hate LGBT or whatever other like things that are like synonymous with conservatism in America or Europe. But it's like they're conservative in the sense they just don't want to learn new things and they just want to like continue doing what they were doing beforehand. Like Japanese don't want to learn English. They don't want to learn how to use computer. They don't want to learn news about other countries. They don't want to talk to foreigners. They just this funny app. Like me personally, I just don't consider Japanese people to be very friendly. That's the thing. Like I have no difficulties making friends with. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's you know, it's Zen, it's simplicity, it's whatever. But I feel like that's putting too rosy-eyed lensed on it. I don't know. Like I have no difficulties making friends with Koreans or Chinese, Taiwanese, Vietnamese, whatever. But it's Japanese that they always seem to come off like, oh yeah, you know, I don't like you. I think I remember reading someone saying like to become friends with a Japanese person takes like years almost. But to become friends with like an Indonesian, you could become friends with an Indonesian in a day. But maybe I have too negative a view because my Japanese friends are kind of not fans of Japan. My Japanese friends are more I mean they're not anti-Japan by any means, but they kind of I guess they usually have criticisms about certain aspects of Japanese culture. Which is fine, you know, I criticize American culture. I have no problems with hearing criticism of American culture. But yeah, Indonesians, those are some friendly guys. Okay, it's not. Is it night for you? It should be like very early in the morning, no? Yeah, it's 1 a.m. People with no lives. Who can watch Twitch at 1 a.m.? I guess you got that girlfriend. Can't say you have no life, but I just don't understand why people. I guess Twitch is the latest thing to do whenever you're bored. Talk about moving. Talk about moving. Oh, this is from that. It's an ancient parable. Talk about moving. Talk about moving.
担保不，2022年3月4日，请。常驻。除了站岗时的教养，扛住了。日夜加班的疲惫，但扛不住。想你，董事长，想你了。想你了。还手巧克力。常见成分，那你快看这。到底选哪个？
啊，有回了一个效果。好死，用牌桌上。后来4个账号，而且每条进的。中央点。
电源。重启。你了，我刚。现在600多条文案都被保存的，抓根。Where are you, Dragon? Dragon! Ah, you are here! Dragon!
Joker，多。
你这个没有。发育完全的小鱼猫。你出来呀！你知道文案中。不好写吗？600。多条文案呐！
地球2圈，这样写什么？数据不好支撑市场反应。肯定不满意，想你的吧。爱豆巧克力太腻。意外了，安保。我肯定不满意。
我回去调。头长，绝不马虎。
韭菜啊！
至少给小叔点。脱水的任务我们完成了。
还好意思。子舒，中午美。人家该给的工资也就算了，零头。
Oh, this is the picture of that Jewish woman.
销售公司。他们的做法。就麻烦你干。干完了？当然，做操是自己。虽然也是。绩效挂钩，让大家还是啊，这样。注册账号是什么？上我家下来的工作，完不成要赔钱。绩效，我有。看齐这个。
小声点。
该怎么做？你自己决定。我不干涉。
哎，别过来！
你大男人怕戏，出息。
哎，别过来！
你大男人怕戏，出息。
意把自己弄成